Hey everyone, welcome back to B007 Movie Reviews. And today I'm catching up on a couple of releases that are currently playing in cinemas around the world. The first is the action comedy The Fall Guy, starring Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. And the second is Luca Guadagnino's sexy sports drama Challengers, starring Zendaya. So let's get into The Fall Guy. I would say that this is very much a movie of two parts. It's a 2 hour film. The first, I guess, 90 minutes contrives to keep its stars at odds with each other. The final 30 minutes, the guys are vibing with each other. They're MacGyvering a plot against the bad guy. They have clear chemistry, and it's really fun. But overall, this film feels like you're trudging through a lot of stuff that's just failing to ignite because of the plot contrivance of keeping them apart until you get to the final part where it's really fun and you're like, why wasn't I watching this all along? The basic concept of the film is that Ryan Gosling, fresh off his success as Ken in Barbie, and with that blonde dye job growing out, plays a stuntman called Colt Seavers. And this is based, for those of you who are old enough to remember, on the 1980s TV show. And Colt is a really lovable, good guy. He's a stuntman. He is in love with the 1980s, as I think this movie wants us all to be. And it's layered with meta jokes about the 80s. That is my decade, and these jokes did not fire for me. Anyhow, Colt had a bad accident and sort of dropped out of the film industry. And in doing so, broke up a relationship with a young cinematographer played by Emily Blunt, fresh off her success in Oppenheimer. And we now fast forward. She's getting her first chance to be a big feature film director. And her film stars this very famous action hero called Tom Ryder, clearly based on Tom Cruise, who's always boasting about doing his own stunts. It's a cameo role. The guy's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who you may remember from Kick-Ass back in the day. He's also rumored to be the next James Bond. He's actually really good in this. He does quite a good Matthew McConaughey impression at the end of the film. But anyway, really, it should be a two-hander between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. It isn't, because very soon into filming her new action movie, the star goes missing, and her agent Gail, played by Hannah Waddington from Ted Lasso, asks Colt Seavers to go find the action star and save his ex-girlfriend's film. The weird part about the plot contrivances, Gail, the agent, says to Colt, you can't tell the director, Jodie, because it's going to throw her off her game. It's going to mess up her vibe with her first ever feature film. So at that point, Colt has to kind of work behind Jodie's back. And so there's just miscommunication. There's hurt because of the old relationship that didn't work out. And like I said, for the first 90 minutes of this film, they're kind of reminiscing about a relationship, but there's no real comedy or joy or spark on screen. You've just got Colt running around trying to find this action star, getting into more and more ludicrous little action sequences that really aren't that impressive. And then you wind into the final act of the film, where suddenly Colt and Jodie realize they're on the same side. They realize that they're trying to find Tom Ryder. And then it's brilliant because they are sparky, they have genuine sexual chemistry, and they're kind of trying to MacGyver a plot to sort of foil and entrap the bad guy. And it really takes off as a film, but it's just too late. By that point, I just kind of lost faith in it. I'd lost interest, and it was a real shame. I feel this is a real missed chance, right? Because the director, David Leitch, is so good with action comedies. He's done Deadpool, the whole franchise. He did Atomic Blonde, starring Charlize Theron, that was so stylish and so brutal. I really love that. So I can and similarly, I don't think it's the fault of Blunt and Gosling, because when they're together, I kind of feel like they're doing all the heavy lifting to make this film appealing. So I actually think the blame for the fact that this film does not work can be laid at the door of the screenwriter Drew Pearce, who's done a little bit of action work, things like Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, but I don't think he has a background in doing romantic comedies, and I think it shows. So in structuring a sort of let's find the bad guy caper, he's fine. But in terms of writing dialogue that really fizzes and jokes that really land, he's just not doing it. So I'm really sorry to say that I did not like The Fall Guy. It's rated PG-13. It has a running time of 126 minutes, which is at least half an hour too long. It's on global release. I don't think it's done particularly well, so we're probably not going to get a sequel. And it's a real shame. But, hey, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, I think at this point are kind of like failure proof. Their careers are so strong they'll bounce back. But, oh, what a missed opportunity. Okay, so the second film to cover today is Challengers. I'm sure those of you who are into your fashions will have seen Zendaya parading around all the PR red carpet stuff in some amazing tennis themed outfits styled by Law Roach. I think this is also sadly a two-star film. I think you get 1 star for the score, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross with this amazing electronic pulsing score. I think you get another star for the cinematographer, Sayombu Mukdeepram's cheeky tennis ball POV shots. I mean, he's done everything possible to make tennis look sexy and exciting. Otherwise, I fear that Challenges is just a really damp squib of an attempt to make a sexy adult relationship drama. It's got really hammy dialogue. I mean, dialogue that you won't see outside of a Bollywood movie or a 1980s soap opera. So, debut feature screenwriter Justin Kuritzka's I'm Looking at You, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, this is a podcast where both films, I think, really fail on their scripts. Hammy dialogue and really superficial characterization. And potentially problematic when we come to Zendaya's character. And I think this is a shame for Zendaya. She's incredibly multi talented. I think she was trying to use this film to rebadge herself from being a Disney child star, which is where she started, into being a serious actor who can headline a film. Like she's been in so many franchise films, from Spider Man to June most recently. But this is her first time sort of headlining a film. And the weird thing for me is that I'm not sure anyone apart from her thinks she is pigeonholed as a child star. She has given an amazingly brave and vulnerable performance in Euphoria, the HBO TV show. Sadly, I think it's not coming back, but she was amazing in that. And then the director of that, Sam Levinson, during lockdown made a very low budget indie film called Malcolm and Marie, in which Zendaya starred opposite John David Washington. And my goodness, if you want a really gnarly, toxic relationship drama where both lead actors really get to sink their teeth into some really fantastic sort of character relationship drama, that's the film for you. So I'm not sure that Challenges is going to do for Zendaya what she thinks it was meant to. As I said, she is meant to be headlining this film. And the weird thing is that I'm not sure she's the star of it. So she plays a junior tennis ace called Tashi. Her career is cruelly ended when she gets a really brutal knee injury. So she turns to coaching and she kind of vicariously lives her career through her husband, Art, who's played by Mike Faist. I hadn't seen him before. Apparently, he's in West Side Story. Pretty good actor by all accounts. So they're living a superficially very successful life. He's won loads of tournaments. They're obviously very rich. They have a daughter. The problem is that he's hit a kind of mental block and they have very little sexual chemistry. So it's kind of like a weird relationship. It's almost masochistic. Like I think he feels he has to play his career for her and he can't stop unless she wants him to stop. It's incredibly toxic. Because he's got this mental block about his tennis, Zendaya's Tashi, who's now his coach, enters him into a challenger tournament. So like a sort of a smaller out of town tournament where they run into a tennis player called Patrick, who's played by Josh O'Connor. And Patrick, Tashi, and Art used to be peers on the junior circuit, but he's now a washed up tennis player. He's broke, he's homeless. He's meeting women on Tinder just so he has somewhere to stay the night. And therefore, in the current timeline, because this all has a very non-linear flashback, flash forward timeline, in the current timeline, you're seeing what happens when Patrick is reintroduced to this couple. So, as I said before, the irony is that this is meant to be Zendaya's first big headline film. And when you watch the film, you realize that she's just the tennis ball that Art and Patrick are playing with. Because this film is actually one about the homosociality of tennis, all these sweaty tennis players hanging out naked in a changing room, but also this very intense homosocial relationship between Art and Patrick that potentially could have been, was homosexual. It is, I think, incredibly on the nose at the climax of this film. doesn't really have anything to do with Tasha at all. She's kind of an observer of this back and forth. And really, it's both of the male players falling into each other's arms over the tennis net. And I just thought, oh, poor Zendaya. She isn't even centered. Oh, I mean, she kind of is in the frame, but then really it's the guys in her own film. So that's the film. It is not as sexy and cool and lovely, at least not in the way the trailer makes out, where it's all about threesomes. And I think it is much more about the two men. And I think, like, looking back at my reviews of things like Call Me By Your Name and A Bigger Splash, I'm coming to the realization that maybe I just do not like director Luca Guadagnino's films, which is controversial, right? Because he's a critical darling, especially since Call Me By Your Name. I find that I don't get the hype. And particularly with this film, I think that it's a film that's using tricksy camera shots, using a pulsating score, using a non-linear narrative to try and camouflage the fact that the underlying story, the underlying characterization is very flimsy and very hammy and not really worth well over 2 hours of our running time. Again, a film that should easily be a good half hour shorter. So, two films I didn't particularly like. And I think two films that also have not done particularly well at the box office. But if you want to see it, Challenges is rated R. It has a running time of 131 minutes and is on global release. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to leave a comment on the YouTube channel, at the blog, bina007.com. Thank you for listening.